So hi all, welcome to Balancing Agility and Security with SBB's journey to AWS. If you're like me, you like to be on time. You like punctuality, so that's why I took the train this morning to arrive here on time. By the way, punctuality, one of SBB's key KPI. So let's focus on SBB's journey now. Either you're here because you just started your journey, or you may be interested to know what challenges did SBB face on their journey. Or maybe you just want to see some nice train pictures. It doesn't matter why you're here. We are happy that you're here. With we, I mean Basho Kaminski, cloud architect from SBB. Myself, I'm Michael Gassler, technical account manager from AWS Enterprise Support. And I'm proud to say that I'm already part of SBB's journey since 4 years now. And I'm looking for more years to come. So, Basho and myself, we prepared some stations on our journey. First, we will give you an overview about SBB and SBB IT in a nutshell. Then we will focus on the 3 key KPIs for SBB, which are security, stability, and the most important one, not only for SBB, as well for the customer of SBB, punctuality. On the security topic, we will learn what does risk-based approach has to do with security. Then on the stability side, Basho will give you an overview about how they can increase stability by increasing resiliency and using the shared responsible model. And on the punctuality, we'll go and explore how developer efficiency can increase the punctuality. So with that, I would hand over to Basho to give you an overview about SBB.
Thanks. So I think most of you know SBB. You came here maybe by train. So you maybe bought a ticket, you consulted the schedule today. But apart from that, we have a very long history. And we're proud of that. So things started back more than 100 years ago, looking a bit like this picture on the left side, where you can see how everything was built with a lot of craftsmanship, with a lot of manual work, but things changed over time. That wasn't planned up front, and that's probably the topic for our journey today through that talk. So things today at railway tracks look completely different. They are highly automated. It's a completely different business. Diving a bit deeper into that, if you came here, you were one of these 1.3 million passengers we're moving today, or if you bought something in one of the shops around the area, then it came maybe here as part of these 175,000 tons of cargo our colleagues from SBB Cargo are moving per day. And if you came here, then maybe you passed by one of these 800 stops. So that is a fairly large network. To operate that, we need about 11,000 trains on that railway network. And last but not least, the most important point for you, I think, is, as Michael mentioned, that you're in time. That's probably what matters for you. To operate all that, we need way more than heavy industry. We need way more than a lot of metal, a lot of concrete. We also need some IT. So giving you a brief introduction into the SBB IT. So we call the SBB IT Digitale Zone. That's kind of our own name. And we have 2 sides on our medal. On the one side, that is what you know, that is the customer-facing side. For example, selling tickets or showing you the schedule so you can check how to get from A to B. And on the other side, you also need a lot of IT within the SBB to provide all that. So we're managing over 2,000 apps And to do all that, we need about 2,800 employees. Giving you a bit of an overview, what is important there. So we're the digitalization backbone for the SBB, and we want to operate all that in a safe and resilient way. To do so, we've structured the whole organization into a matrix model. Most of you know that from bigger companies. So we have kind of the business IT that are these digital solutions. They're having various sizes, and so that makes it quite heterogeneous. Then, as some of you know, very often one deploys a central IT, an IT for IT. That's the green guys, so the digital services, and I'm one of those, working for a team that's called Clue. We're providing kind of this cloud foundation stuff, the development stacks, and development toolings and collaboration toolings. Doing that over free clouds with some managed services we're providing our users, so this blue guys. And yeah, on our side we have our colleagues from DGov that support us. We've given us some framing, security model, some operation model, and help us developing that further. So yeah, that's how it is today, how we're organized, but that's not how we've started. So the cloud journey of SBB started with outsourcing data centers. And then in 2009, we've started using cloud. It was a private cloud. And after that, in 2015, so that's a while ago, we had our first touch into the public cloud. So we've created our first AWS account. You might wonder, things didn't stop there. So in 2019, we've changed our strategy to a public cloud first strategy, focusing on a hybrid multi-cloud strategy. That might be common for a lot of big organizations. But over time, things change, so now we're focused on modernization, automation, DevOps, and all that stuff. Giving you a brief or a bit more of an introduction in a moment, how we do that. Just to give you an idea how that developed in terms of numbers, you can see on that plot in orange the number of accounts, of AWS accounts, over time, and you see how that is quickly rising. It gives you an idea about the development that's inside that organization, about the speed of innovation, and to give you an idea that this, as a proxy, how the costs changed, you can see what we're paying per gigabyte storage in the cloud. And both are not correlated, and that is really important for us. So we were able to break a correlation here, not having a linear rise of, for example, price we pay per usage, really being agile in this way. Going one step back now to this one root account and giving you a bit of a history how we've started. So we've started with this one account. Probably looked a bit like this picture on the left, with a lot of manual work, scripting things. Yeah, keeping that account alive and developing things further. And then things changed over time. You've seen that already, so things evolved. More and more of our users started using that public cloud service we were providing internally. So the whole thing changed probably from this, like going from this Spanish Brötli-Bahn in the middle towards a more modern model. And we were like seeing that evolution coming. Before I show you how we needed to evolve on that, I just give an introduction in the model we're operating there. So the model we've used, I think most of you, if you have a data center or a classical IT operation, know that was a shared model of operation. So everybody shared that one account. It comes with a lot of advantages. So the whole policy enforcement, the whole governance, deployment is rather easy. You just do that on one account. You can do that manually, no problem there. You just do it once. So the whole thing is easy to build. What is a bit of a problem here is that with that low overhead, you have to do everything for everybody at the same time. So we had to do all this compute capacity calculation, this estimates for everybody at once. Same for licenses. On one hand side, that's fine, because we knew that from data centers before. On the other hand side, it became slower and slower. So now, for example, changing things for somebody wasn't possible. It was changing things for everyone. So that increased the impact radius dramatically. And the whole thing got slower and slower. Getting slower and slower, there is something you can do about it. It's basically splitting production on production. Most of you know that. So yeah, we did that. We not only split it production on production, but a little bit more. So we've ended up with about 12 accounts, still being mostly manually operated. Was still of a challenge. We're really wondering how to overcome that. And then a colleague of mine said, yeah, you need to get ready for the next stage. We need to be able to provide accounts like Vectly. We have to just bake them like little brats, one after the other. And we were really wondering how to do that. So we've asked our colleagues from AWS what we can do about that.
So thank you, Basho. I understand you started with one account. I think everyone started with one account. And now you moved, we see 12 accounts. Still possible manually to maintain 12 accounts. But I think you're looking even further, right?
Yes.
So for me, it sounds like you're looking for, or you're needing a landing zone, or LZ. We already heard in the keynote about landing zone. But what is a landing zone? Landing zone is multi-account AWS environment based on AWS best practice. So it's your way to scale to multiple AWS accounts. So there we have two ways to achieve this. You either go with AWS organization, which provides you a baseline to manage all of your accounts. And on top of it, you can still add some customization. So which brings you to your landing zone, your customized landing zone, where you can really adapt to your need. Basically, build something on your own. Or the other way, you go with AWS Control Tower. I know SBB started with AWS Control Tower. It's an easy way to your multi-account environment based on AWS best practice. Underneath, AWS Control Tower is also using AWS organization, but there are plenty more AWS services which are included into AWS Control Tower. So, but I know SBB started with AWS Control Tower, but I let Basho explain to you what were the challenges they faced during their journey.
Thanks. So, as you've said, we've started with the control tower, really deploying a lot of accounts. You can see that evolution here. So instead of having like a couple of accounts that we still share, we're able to produce tons of accounts, really enabling us to give everybody who wanted an account an own account. You didn't have to share anymore. That really tackled the problem there that we had of not having an increased risk because everybody shared that account. So this complexity and this impact was really tackled by that. The mode that we've used there to tackle these challenges very often is a risk-based approach. You might wonder, oh no, risk-based approaches, they might not be fine. But it is. It's really fine because it helps you to evaluate problems, operational problems, risks, in terms of their impact and the probability of their impact. So if you put them on a risk matrix, you can really see how problematic is that and then derive measures onto that. Doing so, going back to our mode of operation that I've shown you before, we tackle it by then creating dedicated accounts. I've said we were able to create an account for everybody who wanted, and that way we had a reduced impact radius. We were able to decouple stages in as many stages as you wanted. If one of our business IT units, one of our DevOps teams needed 3 stages, they're fine, they can use 3 stages. If they need 10, they can get 10. So that really addressed that risk. At the same time...
So to give you an idea about that, maybe the SBB mobile app, right? They started within one account and now they use multiple accounts.
Yes. So at the same time, we were able to simplify the cost allocation. We could then really just move the bills for the accounts to the owners, and it became fairly simple instead of disentangling the bills of this shared environments. On top, if you do application deployments, infrastructure deployments, you were able to do rolling deployments, and so figuring out problems early and addressing that without bringing production at risk. Something that is really important here, we were able to do domain-driven developments. Like every team, every domain, every business domain could use their set of accounts. And that way we were able to linear scale the whole thing. I showed you already that we've scaled that with that model to 170 accounts. Something that was then starting to challenge us was that point A, everything in that one landing zone was kind of production. So what we figured out that actually we couldn't say it's a development account because it's maybe used by 100 engineers at the same time. So as internal IT for IT, it was production for us. That was really challenging for us. At the same time, our users wanted a lot of customizations in their accounts. Somebody needed a bigger network, somebody needed some other modification. And to challenge that, we've moved away from the control tower, built our own landing zone model, splitting at the same time the whole landing zone concept. Now we have 2 landing zones, one for our internal team for the development. It's not customer facing, or it's not the DevOps team facing. It's just for them to deploy things. And at the same time, we have a production environment, a production landing zone with all these team accounts being deployed there. That mode helped us to develop even further, to evolve over time, having now more than 220 accounts, and many of them being heavily customized. So instead of having one model for everybody that looks the same, we have now accounts that can look differently. You might have seen that comparison already. So what is behind that is basically that we went from pets, so something that we babysit, that we take care for, like this dog, to a mode where we needed more of that. We needed cattle. We needed to bring them to the meadow and get them back. We needed to deploy accounts and get them back. With that mode, we've also introduced GitOps. There was really something important here, so our DevOps teams could interact with their environments. And now, with these 2 landing zones, we're developing further. We're developing in an industrialization, so we have like a platform industry. We can modify accounts. We can deviate from standards. Getting to standards, something that was really a challenge for us at that term when introducing that was how to set standards, how to enforce standards, for example, for the landing zone, to make sure we're not going into risks we don't want to have. So, yeah, AWS was there to help us again with enforcing and setting these standards.
Yeah, so we just heard SBB started with one account, scaled to multiple accounts, used AWS Control Tower, then used a more customized way to build your multi-account environment. And now they are challenging with the need of how to set standards and guardrails on all the developer accounts. So this brings me back to the AWS organization. There, with AWS organization, it's really a baseline, and it helps you to to have a better overview about all of your accounts. But most important there, we have a lot of different services. We have over 30 services which are heavily integrating into AWS organization. So we often split them into 4 different pillars. First, we have manage accounts and resources, which is AWS organization part of it. There we have around 10 services which are integrating into AWS organization. I just want to provide you one example here. AWS Resource Access Manager, RAM. I know SBB is using this really heavily to share their IP space across different accounts. But there are other pillars, there are other services who are integrating into AWS organization. So to provide some guardrails, some initial guardrails, we have a pillar which is called policy and at scale. There we were talking for about 4 different policies. Backup policy, I think the name already mentioned it quite well. You can define your backup policies. But the most important one here for SBB, I know, is SCP. What is SCP? SCP stands for Service Control Policy. This enables SBB to set already some guardrails. So I know they are restricting the usage of region only to Zurich and Frankfurt, but they are more restricting it through SCPs. Talking about restricting, I would go to the next pillar, which is security. There you see we also have a lot of different AWS services which are security related, but all integrating into AWS organization. Just to give you an example there, AWS Security Hub. I know SBB is using it. They are delegating it into a dedicated AWS account where they are just overviewing all the security posture of all the different accounts. But there are way more. Then, last but not least, I think these are services they often got forgotten. AWS Cost Explorer is also heavily integrating into AWS organization. So there you can have an easy way to have an overview about your cost, either on an AWS account, just on your dedicated account, or over all the accounts. So, Basho, you see there are plenty of services. They are all already integrating into AWS organization. I know you're using AWS organization. Can you tell us, I know it already, but maybe interesting for all the folks here, what were the challenges you faced with this shifting responsibility approach?
So yeah, thanks. One of the challenges there was that we said we're a DevOps organization, so we needed to shift this responsibility from some central governance towards the DevOps teams. So that's really a shift left. And this integration of organization, for example, the guardrails being capable of being set with the organizations were really key to shift that responsibility. So what we did is kind of a stage approach. So first thing, there are some things we need to enforce. There are laws we need to follow. Michel mentioned that already. We need to follow data privacy laws, so we need to enforce that. Other laws or other standards we need to enforce are guardrails that protect our landing zone. We want our users not be capable of destroying central infrastructure that we've deployed. For that, we use service control policies. Beyond that, there are a lot of more things that might be in a gray zone. You might need exceptions, or you might be even capable of accepting deviations, because it's something that's not really a high-risk thing. For that, we rely on CloudTrail to monitor this posture, the security posture, on config to derive whether something is compliant or not. On top of that, we use, as already mentioned by Michel, the Security Hub to collect all this data, show that into a central dashboard. Nonetheless, we're not only relying on the central dashboard capability, but also giving every user and their account access to these dashboards. So all our DevOps teams are capable of taking a look into their security and governance and compliance posture. And that is really important because what we've learned over time that this transparency is key for our teams. If they need to take their responsibility, if we want them to take this responsibility, it must be transparent what the rules are and whether they're following these rules. Then a second learning on that journey was that we've really needed to continuously evolve on that. Giving you an idea how that is embedded in our organization, in this structure, in this topology, we have organizational units where we apply separate service control policies per organizational unit, for example, being separate for development, for non-productive workloads or production workloads. And at the same site, we have for central IT teams, for IT teams, we have an own, for example, organizational unit. So that is a very simplified model of that, but it shows you the most important parts. And yeah, I told you before, on the other side, we have something that's not available for our DevOps teams. That's a second landing zone that we're using internally for development purposes, but it just looks the same. It has the same functional structure like the one on the left side. Beyond that, if you want to shift responsibility, you need to wonder about sharing responsibility. And that is something that is really key here. If you want to do DevOps, you need to share that. We've derived what we call code of conduct. We're relying there on the AWS shared responsibility model. So using that as a blueprint, you can see on the bottom the part that we've delegated or that's delegated to AWS. That's the whole cloud foundation. That's the security and governance of the cloud itself, of AWS. And then we're responsible as SBB for everything that comes on top. We've separated further. So as an internal operator, we're responsible for the cloud service operation, for the landing zones, for operating that. And then it starts to become a bit more complicated. So to address the different needs of our DevOps teams, on the one hand side, they can deploy their own infrastructure and then they're fully responsible for everything there. And if they want to have less stress with that, they can rely on one of our managed runtime services. So we have a managed OS there, unified OS, that we're providing, that we're managing, that we're operating. Or we have a managed Kubernetes platform, there we rely on OpenShift. So those teams can really rely on writing code. So you might think that, well, we have a secure, we have a resilient, we have a secure, we have a governed landing zone, we have an account. So we might go now and take the train. We're ready, we have apps, everything's fine. But wait, things change, so you need to be resilient. And that's really key for us as SBB. So resiliency for us is the capability to react on some event, on some sudden event, on some change, to recognize what is connected, what risks are connected with that event, and to deal with it. Key here to do so is that we need to build robust architectures. And it's a key KPI from our business. So business is measuring that in terms of loss and punctuality. Punctuality, that's also important for you. To do so, we've deployed that into the landing zone. We're enabled that. So doing that technically by, for example, providing all our network infrastructure in free ACs. So teams can deploy their applications spanning multiple ACs, building them highly available. For the infrastructure we're deploying, we're relying on also either high available services or managed services, and we're baking in GitOps capabilities. That being able to recover from failures quickly, so having a built-in recoverability. But that's not all. Something we've learned over time, and I think we're great in that, is that resiliency requires more than technical measures. It's basically about culture. So if you want to do DevOps, it's basically you build it, you run it. And there we've started with giving our colleagues and the DevOps teams some guidance, giving them best practices, sharing knowledge, helping them to building better applications. And also building better applications involved something like learning together from mistakes. And that's something where I think, and that's my personal opinion, we're really good in doing so. And there we rely on blameless postmortems. That's basically a model where we say after every problem, after every incident, you create a timeline going back in time to the root cause of the problem, deriving that root cause, and then writing down measures for that. Writing down what you can improve to mitigate that problem or to not make it happen again. Still, our teams, and what is really important, they're doing that blameless, so really being effective in doing so. So something that we then figured out that maybe that's not enough. We need to further shift responsibility to the teams, help them getting better. So we've asked our colleagues, Misha, for example, what do you think? What can we do better? And they came up with these well-architected reviews to help us.
Whoa, awesome. I really like the blameless postmortem approach SBB is doing. That's amazing. But wait, at least I know something way more, way better than doing a blameless postmortem. No postmortem, right? So that's why we do well-architected reviews with SBB. Why should you do well-architected reviews? First, really key identifying risk. This is our approach to proactively reach out, check the hills on your application so that we can reduce the need of any blameless postmortems. Identifying risks, document it, make decision, and improve your workload yield. It really comes down to analyze your current application, identifying risk, agree on a way forward. How are we going to mitigate it, and implement it? But that's not just a one-time thing, right? We are doing this on a regular basis. Really, it's key to do it continuously. Just have a look on your application, improve it. That's why we're doing well-architected reviews together with SBB. But, okay, I just talked a lot about why. What is a well-architected review? What is the well-architected framework? Let me just give you a quick introduction about what the well-architected framework is. Basically, it's a set of questions. They're all based on best practices, and there are different lenses. So we have already predefined questions for the different domains. For example, finance domains or manufacturing or also for SBB as well. At the end, it comes down to a bunch of questions where you have to analyze and check against your application. Is it well architected? The questions are really key and based on lessons learned from the past, from different customers. So by analyzing and going over the application, we can really reduce the need of any postmortems, right?
So hopefully, yeah.
We just saw a lot about security and resiliency, but key KPI for SBB is really punctuality. So I let Basho explain to you what SBB is doing to increase the punctuality even more.
So thanks. So you might think, fine, everything is secure, everything is compliant now, and even resilient. So that must be already good enough. It isn't for us. So I want to tell you what punctuality and reliability is, how it is important for us and how we can improve it. Because it's it's our key KPI. So something I've noticed when looking into our Jira was that with features we can really improve punctuality. So for example, punctuality is influenced by the behavior of our users, of our customers, of you. And for example, adding new displays on a station, we can help that you can quicker enter a train. So that's a new feature. Building these features, we need to do that fast, easy, secure, and with high quality. For that, we have a great model at hand. We're having standardized developer stacks. We call them ASTA, that we provide our teams. These ASTAs are basically a set of blueprints in various languages, covering back-end applications, front-end stuff, where we standardized how we want them to deploy software, how we want the code to look like, to follow these standards, to have the desired quality. Then on top of that, we have some CI pipelines that we provide our teams being heavily integrated. So they can download that, fork that, and start deploying that right at hand. On top of that, we've integrated that with a CD pipeline, with a deployment pipeline. There we rely on Argo CD, which right away deploys that in a standardized way on our runtime environment, and there on OpenShift. The whole blueprint also covers monitoring tools. There we're relying, for example, on Instana or New Relic, so giving them some options which monitoring tool they prefer. And then the whole loop closes by having tools for testing, for continuous improvements like code cleanups, being also integrated like Renovate to update dependencies in the code. So yeah, that gives us now the capability to have more features in our apps, to have secure and compliant apps, and getting better over time. Getting better over time. Something that we've learned here was we've started rather small and we evolved over time. And I think that was really key for us. So first we learned walking, and now we can really run. We can deploy our infrastructure really broadly and scale all that. What we did there, we always had some scaling in mind. We always thought ahead how things can change. And I think that was really important for us to be ready for these challenges and to tackle them. Then compliance and resiliency really requires more than just technical measures. So we've also added cultural things, cultural discussions, blameless postmortems on the site to get better in terms of compliance and resiliency and stuff like that. And last but not least, that something that really helped us writing more features, getting better, was the standardization of our DevOps toolchain with these developer stacks. So yeah, now we're ready to operate all that, and operating all that basically means that we need to do continuous maintenance to getting better and better over time for you as our customers.
Thank you. So if you're also doing maintenance and between maintenance, maybe you have some time to learn something new, we have Skill Builder, which provides you a platform where you can create your account. There are plenty of different learnings online where you can get some hands-on experience with Skill Builder. About evolving and learning something new, with that I would close it, but please, I know you already heard it multiple times today, but it's important for Basho and myself to learn and evolve. So please complete the survey on mobile phone so that we can learn something new and can improve our speaker skills. With that, thank you very much for attending, and have a nice rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody.